Hey guys, thanks for joining me. I'm going to be sharing some tips for DMing the Adventure Giants of the Starforge, this free adventure that you can get that is tied in with Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants. There will be spoilers abounding here, so if you're a player, please come back after you play and let us know how it went. If you're a DM and you got some tips to share, please leave them in the comments below. So this adventure is for 16th level characters. The project leads are Patrick, Renie, and James Wyatt. I hope I pronounced that right, Patrick. And this adventure is about a 4-hour adventure. I would, for the pacing, if you're trying to do this in 4 hours, I would try and do character intros getting started in Fireside Monastery in the first hour, Fireside tests, and onto the crater and try to finish up the Battle of the Crater Rim in the second hour. And then in the third hour, entering the crater, the Iron Shelter, crossing the water, and then the final hour, the Advent Path and the Starforge. And if you have time, and the dragon wasn't dealt with earlier, the Dragon's Revenge. I ran this, it took about 3.5 hours. It's pretty full. They skipped the Battle of the Crater Rim, and therefore they faced the Dragon's Revenge at the end. And it ran about 3.5 hours, like I said. So, you can pace it. There's plenty of interaction in the early part of the adventure with NPCs that you can have more or less there. And of course, you can pull out a couple encounters if you need to, if you're running late at the end. So this adventure is on D&D Beyond, like I said. Here's what it looks like on D&D Beyond. And it's interesting in the design notes. Basically, they say the adventure is based on the map that's in the book and the various random tables that are in the book. So you could, in theory, do roughly the same thing with the other maps in the book and make more giant adventures in that way. There is some artwork that's been removed because they had some AI involvement in the artwork. So it's a little sparse on artwork in here. There's a couple of monsters. All the monsters you need are provided. I don't think you have to have Bigby Presents to be able to play this adventure. So you have the Cinder Hulk here. You have the Furball Wanderer. The Forge Collar's art is going to be redone. And then, of course, the Fire Giant of Evil Fire. Okay, so let's look at it here in roll 20. I have it set up. The blurb of the adventure, Giants of the Starforge. A noble emissary asks you to rescue the region's greatest smith. The emissary explains that a fire giant named Grimskarda kidnapped the smith and took him to the Starforge, a giant furnace built in the crater of a fallen star. That's pretty epic setting. That's awesome. For the music for this adventure, I selected 3 tracks here. Medieval Town for the start of the adventure when you're talking to the NPCs and such. I'll turn the volume up here. So there's the Medieval Town music. And then once the party makes it into the Mountain Pass area, I use Mountain Pass by Tabletop Audio. Turn this up a little bit. So that's good for the monastery and the various fireside tests that the party will do. And then the last music, which is good for the crater, is Forge of Fury by Tabletop Audio. And that's really good for fire giants and forges and such. Alright, keep that going in the background here. So the tokens, like I said from the book, some of the artwork's been removed and it's going to be redone. I'll put links below in the description to the tokens that I've created so far, and let's take a look at the tokens that we have here. We have, of course, the Cinder Hulk. We have the Salamander and the Air Elemental. I didn't redo the Air Elemental to make him look more acidic, but I just used him as how he was there. Got a Fire Giant, Red Dragon, Fire Giant, the Evil Fire Giant, and these large tokens that I have like go beyond the size of their base. I do that. I do in 2 different tokens. I have the token that is what you see of the artwork of the giant. If I move that aside, I have an invisible token underneath it because I like putting the condition markers and the hit points, in the normal base of a token. So that red outline is actually invisible to the players, but it tells me that there are 2 tokens there. So when I am selecting this guy, I select him by picking both, and that way I move them, they both move together. And then this artwork here is the artwork that's got removed specifically from the book. In the links, I've actually done this token, and I'll share that with you. So that is the tokens for the adventure. The maps for the adventure. They are huge. Yeah, there's these zoom out feature, zoom to fit feature. And I broke it into 2. I would recommend maybe breaking it into 4 or even 6 maps. That might help load it faster. And despite its huge epicness, it actually doesn't show you what you need for the battle on the crater's rim. So I just added that below here. Just extended the rim of the crater. And when the party first arrives, they have the fire giants there and the red dragon. And then they can descend down into the crater after that battle. But before you get there, we have, of course, the party runs into Evan. And there are a number of secret things that I share with players as I go, and they're whispered to the GM here in the description. You can see like information they might know about Theldon because of their history skill, or information they might know about the acidic lake poisoning nearby waters due to the nature skill, etc. And I whisper that directly to the players. I'll put those whispers in the description below so you can copy those as you like. Then the party will come to the monastery, where they'll meet Diasma, who is the Furbolg, who knows a little bit more about the crater, and she will offer to try to help the players hone their skills and what they might face against fighting giants with some contests. And if the players do that, they have the fire contest, the cloud contest, and the stone contest. So it helps to have a little bit of a map set up for that. So for the fire contest, they have to climb a cliff. And it can be pretty straightforward, just a simple little, line drawing there with the cliff. I'd recommend doing all this simultaneously. Just say to all the players, hey, let's look at the fire giant one again. In the fire giant one, they're climbing a rope. It's a DC 10 athletics check the first round, and it gets worse after that. Just have them all make the check right at the start, have them all move their tokens right at the start. When I ran this, the party's barbarian, as you would expect, ran away with the physical aspects. The cloud giant one, you'll want a 150-foot long track. So I did that 150-foot long track right there. And then the stone giant one, you don't need any map for that one. And if you have a party of clerics, like I had, a couple clerics, and they cast Hero's Feast, that could go on and on. They went 10 plus rounds without failing that wisdom saving throw. So I ended up just saying the two clerics tied for the win on that one. Okay, so after the contests, Diasma and a few of the Furbolgs may offer to go with the party if the party did well, and they probably will at level 16. And then the party will head about 3 miles, 4 miles, or 3 or 4 hours into the mountains and finally come to the rim of the crater. And from the crater rim, they'll be able to look down upon this amazing sight of this whole crater. And then I placed nearby where they first crested the crater, I had them crest the crater down here on the bottom of the map, were the patrolling fire giants and the red dragons staying out of the fire giants' range. And of course, they had the Furbolgs with them, so the Furbolgs offered to go distract the giants while the party descended into the crater. Your party might decide to fight them or not, and by the party not fighting them, the dragon showed up later to face the party after the final forge battle. Descending down into the crater, you of course have the broken bridge, and no way to cross that lake safely. Then you have the lake description. And I should note that the damage that these things do, I've multiplied all the damage by 1.5. I find level 16 characters are extremely hardy when played by players who know what their skills are. So if this party, of course, had a Hero's Feast. They had death wards on multiple characters, so they're super resilient, and clerics that can cast heal spells. So don't be worried doing a lot of damage to a high level party. I also do the same thing where I multiply the monster damage. Now, if the party is not real skilled in the characters, that they don't know that their powers and such are, I just have, for the monsters, so down here, for the monsters I have a multiplier, this 1.5 multiplier, so this guy's doing 1.5 times normal damage. I can just reduce that to 1 times at any time. If the party is kind of new to D&D, which if they're playing 16th level characters and they're new to D&D, they probably won't be able to harness all the capabilities of a level 16 character. And they might be a little bit more fragile than a more experienced player. So keep that in mind. Okay, so yeah, up the damage on the water to make it really, feel dangerous to level 16 characters. Then they have, in addition to, and I should note that I do these map keys, and I have this thing across the top here, basically by using an invisible token with an aura that only I can see, and then the numbers I put on the DM layer so the players don't see the numbers. I've also played around with putting the numbers up in these things, but you don't see it if you're not clicked on it, and so therefore I still have the numbers down shown below. Okay, so you got the water's edge. Then you have all these buildings around the rim of the lake, and most of them, they're all made of iron. Most of them, I have the 3x here, are in disrepair and in various stages of ruin. But they should see smoke coming from one of them because there's a forge going, and that's the one over here to the east. So they'll see that, they might go explore that. It's an iron shelter. If they peer inside the windows on the lake side, they might be risking the acid from the lake. If they go around to the other side, they would not, if they have familiars. But of course, there's no windows on the other side looking in. So to look into this window into the forge, they might be risking the lake, but they could see, if they look inside, the workshop, the piles of metal and other building materials, and of course the 2 Cinder Hulks. The 2 Cinder Hulks is not much of a fight for a high-level party, but that's okay. The party kind of just crushed a couple of opponents to build up their confidence as they move deeper into this adventure. When they decide to go across the lake, that's when I had the acid, the vapor, what are they called in the adventure? Let's see here. They're called in the adventure... Oh, it doesn't say here in my notes. Anyway, I had these 3 elementals attack. Again, fairly easy fight, fairly straightforward fight, but lets the party really flex their muscles. Then they get to the island, and I'd say of any monster to maybe beef up the points on, it'd be the evil fire giant. At 150 hit points, it'll go down real fast to the 16th level party. And this could, you might want to feel like this is a little bit better fight, but there's plenty of stuff that's coming that's going to be really hard. After they have this fight, they're going to come up here to the temple itself, or the forge itself. And of course, on the outside of the forge, they should have heard from Diasma that there's something wrong with the pillars of the ruins. So they can fix the cracked rune stone here as they're approaching the forge, and then they come to the forge. And the forge has this blinding radiance coming out of it. And so if you've ever gone into like a tunnel that was dark, or I think the reverse happens too, with this transition between outside daylight and this blinding radiance inside, I just made it so they couldn't see in there until they got to the threshold, until they stepped into the blinding radiance. And that blinding radiance for this this chamber is going to be pretty bad when they get in there. The damage is, I think it's 4d10 in the adventure, is that right? You had it up to 6d10, 1.5 times as much, and blinds them to the start of their turn. That's every round they're in the chamber. Of course, you'll want to describe that both the giant and the human are wearing goggles, and the giant's got that, or the human's got the shackle and the long metal chain wrapped around his ankle, because that's how he's protected from getting the fire damage. And the party faces Brimskarda. So Brimskarda's attacks are largely, well, the heated rock attack, or the, magma wave ruin attack is really cool. But it doesn't do as much damage as her Forge Hammer, which just does ungodly damage to 3 different opponents. And she hits really good. And then of course her heated rock is 2 attacks, and it does even more damage, I think, than her Forge Hammer. Plus her Forge Hammer has the thing that hit or miss heats the area around the person she struck. So I still did the magma wave because it's just so thematically cool. But that's that. And then her furnace armor, of course, gives her half cover from attacks. So that is Brimskarda. If the party then is finishing off Brimskarda, you can have the red dragon come swooping in as the final end of the battle. And that's the end of the adventure, basically. But the treasure is pretty small here. The reward's pretty small. It's like 5,000 gold. There should be a dragon horde here, though, right? So I had the dragon's horde like pushed up against the walls inside the forge chamber. So you can kind of set the treasure amount how you want. I know in Adventure League it should be 10,000 gold pieces per character. There's nowhere near 50,000 gold pieces in the adventure, but you could certainly make it 50,000 by upping the reward from the city and including the dragon horde as extra treasure inside. So then in the conclusion of the adventure, they will return with Theldon, be greeted with a hero's welcome, feast in their honor, gifts shoved upon them or given to them, and Theldon I had him offer to commission 2 pieces of work, either 2 suits of armor, 2 weapons, or 1 of each. And in the adventure as written, forget what they wrote in the adventure, let's take a look here. In the conclusion, so +2 weapon, +1 armor. These guys are 16th level, and they should be getting very rare magic items by now, so I have that to +3 weapon or +2 armor, which I think is fitting. So that is the end of the adventure. Let me know how it went for your group and what you thought of it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys have a good time playing it. I'll catch you next time.